All right, welcome ladies and gentlemen to week number 70. My name is Mr. McLogan and the topic for this live stream is how to cram for a test. Now, I know many of you might have already taken your exams or many of you have some exams that are coming right up. So I thought this might be a good topic of conversation for us this week. And even though if you've been following my channel, you would know that I would never endorse cramming for a test. I think it's very important to space out your preparation for your test. But, there's going to be times that things come up and, you're just going to have to cram. And, the same thing, that's kind of what happened to me this weekend or at least this week, with ever since we've had our third child, my life has been extremely crazy and very difficult for me to be able to plan and prepare and get everything done that I'm so used to. And I know that for a lot of you, this year has kind of changed how you are familiar with getting prepared for tests and exams and everything like that. So it has definitely been some changes that we've had to make, and I wanted to kind of give you guys some tips. If you do have something you need to cram for, then hopefully the tips in this live stream will be able to help you out. And then also, guys, as always, I go ahead and answer your questions. I think we have, we got 8 math questions that were pre-submitted. And if you're interested in submitting a question into me, I do take questions each and every week and answer them on each and every one of my live streams after I kind of go over the initial announcement. And you guys can go ahead and submit your questions in the playlist, or I'm sorry, in the description below. And let me just actually go and get this link for you guys. So therefore, if you're interested in submitting a question with me next week, no worries, guys. If you are even at the end of the year, if you're going into summer school or you got to maybe retake your course because this year has been crazy and horrible, I will continue doing my live streams throughout the year and always happy to be able to help you guys out with your test. So welcome very much, Diddy and Diddy who punch your face. It's a long story. I can't wait till this is gone. Good thing, Tyler. Glad to have you on here. And VK in paper. And Piyush Kumar. I love vaping. Okay. And Endgame is bad. Yolina. Majid. Saucy Chair. Who has a math test tomorrow? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So my students are actually taking a test on Tuesday. And so last year, I did some things to get you guys prepared for end of the year stuff. And this year I was like, all right, I had everything kind of ready. And then we obviously had our kid and it has been very, very difficult for me to be able to get things ready and prepared. Like last night I was basically, I think up for, maybe most of the night. So all the prep work and everything like that, it just throws me completely off kilter. I have a mock EOC that I'm going to go over next, tomorrow night. So therefore, oops, I forgot to pin that. If you guys are interested in joining that, I did put it on my channel, and let me actually go ahead and, give you guys that link, and I'll probably pin this later too as well. That you guys can go ahead and if you want to join. So if you are taking pre-calculus and you do have a pre-calculus exam coming up, what I'm doing next week is doing my mock EOC that I gave my students. So therefore my students are going to be, oh no, hopefully this will work until 10. Yeah, I'm not going to go live right now, but hopefully I'll go through. So anyways, if you guys want to join me tomorrow night, it's going to be at 9 p.m. We'll do the same thing. What I'm going to do is I gave this to my students on Friday as a mock EOC. So this is my students in pre-calculus take our district exam. So they don't have to take a exam for myself, but I did create this one to help them prepare for that. So the video is delayed a lot. Well, I do delayed from my voice. Justin, are you talking about? Or I'm not really sure where you're seeing it delayed from. It says everything on my end has excellent connection. So I'm not sure if where that is from on there. But let me know if you have anything else from there. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, I mean, definitely there could be delay on the chat if that's what you're referring to, but I'm not sure if there's anything on the actual feed that's come through. It looks everything decent, at least on from my end. All right. So let's talk about cramming for a test. Now, again, not ideal, ladies and gentlemen, especially for final exams. But I do understand that, times are going to come up, guys, and let's kind of get into it. If you have to if you have to cram for a test, here's some things I want you guys to understand. Again, being a person that's taken a lot of math tests, I can definitely relate to some of these techniques. And these are things that I have used on my own when I need to like study, not just for just like a math test, but really for any set of tests. All right, so the first tip that I would definitely recommend, guys, is when you are studying. So you got to remember, like when you're cramming for a test, you have a limited amount of time, right? It's not like you're studying 3 or 4 like weeks ahead of your test. You have a limited amount of time. So the main important thing, this is something I put out in my email today, was the main thing is like you gotta take advantage of your resources, okay? So what I want you to do is look through all of your, tests or your chapters and kind of like try to like understand the main big picture from each chapter, right? So let's say you have a course that has like 8 chapters. All right. Now what I want you to do is like go through each one of those chapters and try to write down though, like literally take the time, write down the main concept, the main idea of each and every one of those chapters, the main thing that you need to know or what you would expect to see on a test. Now, how are you going to know what you'd expect to see on a test? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a quick little tip. Typically, whatever you see on quizzes, whatever you see in homework, whatever you see in tests, those are usually topics that are important enough that you're going to see them on final exams. So try to understand this big, larger picture that's going on for each of those chapters. And then also make sure you review these little details. Review like the processes or the little theorems that you're like, I bet that's something that was very important or very specific, like to that chapter. So go back through, you want to be able to take a look at the big picture, but then also be able to focus down on what you think is the most important details of each of those chapters, right? So it might just be like a major formula or a major process or a technique that was used throughout the whole chapter. So it's a very finite or a very like detailed process, but it was used throughout the whole chapter. So just try to go through each one of those chapters and just try to like think about the big picture as well as the little picture and write them down. This is a very important detail about this, is write those items down. All right. The next thing I'd recommend doing is take out all of your tests and quizzes. And what I would do is just go through each and every one of the problems that you've solved. Now, hopefully you have these problems solved with the correct work. And even the problems that you did correctly, or if you even got them wrong, hopefully you have like the corrected answers. But you want to go back and just review as much math, the processes and everything that you went through on those tests and quizzes and all those homework assignments. Because again, typically what you have already been assessed on is going to replicate itself some way, somehow, in some fashion on your final exam. So try to go back through, and it's not so much, you don't have time to really be practicing a whole bunch of math problems. Typically, if you had more time, that's exactly what I would do. That's why my students took a mock exam on Friday, because I wanted them to practice and prepare. They don't have time to do a mock exam tomorrow. We're taking the test on Tuesday. So, from then, what I would just recommend is, what you got to do in this case is just kind of go back through, review all of those problems as much as you can. Now, non-math kind of tips here is when you're doing all of this, you got to think about your time and attention. And typically one of the reasons why you might be cramming is because your time and attention has been like spread out. You probably have multiple exams that you're studying for, or you could have a little child that keeps you up at night. And then you have 2 other ones that are always constantly keeping you busy, but you've got to find some time when you're trying to cram for a test. You have to find that time where you can get very, very detailed and very, very focused. So set yourself what I would do is set yourself some parameters like a timer, and I would say at least try to go for 45 minutes. And if you start to get in like the zone, get that like a little flow, then you can go a little bit longer. But I think it's really good idea to also take those forced breaks. I always like 45 minutes, because if I go 45 minutes, then I take 15 minutes of forced break and I just walk, or I just do something different. And then I go back in and I do another 45 minutes. And typically if I do 3 or 4 of those sessions, that's going to give me a really, really good review, and I'll feel pretty well prepared for whatever I might be studying for. It's not really math related, but whatever I need to be able to put my attention to. But it's really, really important to make sure that you're giving yourself those breaks to let your brain kind of like ingest some of the stuff. Because you got to remember, you're cramming. You're trying to throw as much information into your brain as possible and then to recall it very, very quickly. So you're going to have to give your brain some time to actually digest that information. You just can't keep on throwing stuff at it. So I recommend going 45 minutes and then do 15 minutes of just doing something completely random and just let your brain process all that information and then go ahead and get back into it. Now, the number one thing though, in addition to all of these, like going through all this process, you still have to get to sleep. I mean, you can stay up all night and do those all night cram sessions. That's never going to work. And that's, I mean, you might get lucky and you might think it's going to work, but if you're really going to try to recall some information, even though cramming is not ideal, get yourself some sleep. Really give your brain some of that time to understand and digest that information, not only through the breaks while you're studying, but also in preparation for your test. Because you can cover a lot of information in a cram session, but I think it's really important that you just understand when you're trying to cram. Let's say we have a test let's say we're in my class and we haven't studied for Mr. McLogan's pre-calc exam all year long. So what are we going to do? Well, what I would recommend doing is, what I tell my students is go back through each and every one of my homework assignments and all my tests and all my quizzes, and I would review all of the problems that we did. Now, for my students, I give them the answers, I give them a video. I wouldn't spend too much time watching videos. Unless there's like a very specific video, is explaining exactly how to do something, then obviously that's great. And that's where most of my videos are tailored to, or that's at least why I like to, have my videos. And that's a lot of the way that I approach my videos. But again, like you have to know what video of mine that you're watching or what video of anybody's you're watching to make sure it's a good use of your time. So I would recommend just like reviewing all that information. But the main thing is like summarize for your brain, write it down. If you're just going to be looking through the math work and you're not writing down like for every chapter, create like this little cheat sheet. And if you haven't created a cheat sheet before, go and take a look at my channel. I have a ton of content where I talk about, creating cheat sheets for your math test. And I would spend a good amount of time creating a cheat sheet. I think that's a great way to cram for a test is creating that cheat sheet. Also create that kind of summary, like summarize each and every chapter. What are the main topics? What are the main details that you need to know from each one of these chapters? And again, you're going to get that information from the tests and the quizzes from each of those chapters. So I think with that, as well as giving your break, as well as giving yourself time and rest is going to put you in the best way to succeed for cramming. It's not ideal, but you can still kind of get away with it. But I think you just need to understand you're really you got to make the most of your time. You got to make the most of your attention and your effort, right? So you got to be very smart with how you're studying. You can't study everything, and even if you feel comfortable with something, like just do a quick review of it. You don't need to, be wasting more time going through practice problems. That's good for another day, another time. For you got to make sure that you are being very diligent with what you are preparing for, what you're studying for, what you're reviewing. Be very smart with your time. And then the other thing is, you got to understand you're putting a lot of pressure on your brain, especially if you're in exam season, you're taking multiple exams, your brain's already going to be exhausted, right? So make sure you're giving yourself your brain that time. I was trying to do some work earlier today. And since I was up all last night, I was doing my work and I was just like, I was so exhausted from doing my work. And I was like, I just got to finish this one page. I was like, you know what? My work is getting really bad. It's getting really sloppy. And this isn't good. So what I decided to do is just said, stop. All right. I'm just going to take a break. And that's exactly what I did. I just took a nice little rest there. And what that allowed me to do though, was to recalibrate myself. And then I was able to finish the rest of the work I need to do for the rest of the day. And that's what I would recommend for you guys is, making sure you're getting those breaks, because I know it's so easy to think that, I can just keep on going. But even though your brain might follow you, it's like, okay, yeah, we can do it. Like, let's do it. We all know your brain is just, it's just listening to you, but it's not going to be able to perform at its best if you're pushing it on, if you're trying to run your car on gas fumes, it's not going to go long. Eventually it's going to crash and burn, and maybe not burn or crash, but you're going to run out of gas, right? So don't treat your brain like a car on empty gas. Like, you got to give it some time. You got to get some rest. You got to put some fuel in it, right? And just remember that. because that's the main thing is when you're taking a test, regardless of you cramming or studying at all, it comes down to like, your mental state the day of the exam. Try to reduce your stress, try to use some breathing techniques to slow down your breathing, and you really want to allow yourself just to do the best you can possibly do on the test. And I think you guys can definitely do it. It has been one heck of a year. So I wish you all the best for those of you that have a test. And hopefully you guys thought these tips were helpful, or at least a little reminder. I mean, I know it wasn't anything groundbreaking for many of you, but hopefully at least was something helpful to be. Yes, I know I do look beaten up. My eye just is it feels perfectly fine, but it's just a little raw skin that kind of got a little tan, and then I still have a little scab or not scab, but a little scar that hopefully will clear up. Yes, I'm almost at 1 million subscribers. Thank you very much. Got my final tomorrow. You got it. It's scarred. Good for you. Math isn't the only way we can learn problem solving. That is absolutely correct, Kevin. I do agree with you 100%. Yes, I'm seeing your point, Kevin. But I think there's a lot in math that we do not teach. I totally agree that we should be teaching our students. I think we put a lot of focus and attention on the wrong type of mathematics, because what we needed for mathematics years ago is still being taught, and that's not necessarily the mathematics we need for everybody now. All right. What's the best activity to let your brain take in the information? Like I said, I think doing a summary, like writing down stuff, writing down a summary, doing a cheat sheet, write down everything you know about a certain chapter, write down all the details, the formulas, write down practice examples. I think that's a really, really good way to have your brain take in the information and do like a summary of what you are learning. Yes, I do like the art of problem solving books. Those are good as well. Math's going to be used in your whole life. That is absolutely correct as well. And yeah, I think, the other thing too, Kevin, actually to kind of go against also even what you're saying too is, I don't think the purpose of our schooling or our education is always going to be directly to teach people exactly what they need to know for real life. Like what I mean for that is there's a lot of stuff that people are learning in other classes that I'm like, I have never even learned this ever. And, I don't need to know, a lot of this stuff and not saying it's, I think the point of education, when you look into the like electives, like why do colleges offer electives as well, right? Because we want people to have well-rounded, and again, you never know what people are going to get themselves into, and you want people to have a broad understanding of of the world and of different topics and and subjects. So I think it's important that we are exploring and we are encouraging people to have a general knowledge across all spectrums. And we're not just like, oh, you're a writer, so you're only going to study writing. You don't need to know anything on math. Or, oh, you're a math person, so you're just going to learn math and not know anything else, right? Or not worry about, knowing any other content. And so I think that having a well-rounded student is very important for a functioning and productive society. But contrary though, on the math part, there's still a lot of math that I disagree with that we are forcing students to know. And also not so much we're forcing people to know, but my problem is that we are judging students if they know this or not. And that's based on if they're able to get scholarships, if they're able to go to colleges, and like students take this personally. They're like, oh, I can't understand this math. And then they feel like inferior to other students, which is like completely irrelevant in my mind, and I think does a much bigger disservice than it does to actually benefit our society. Well, I think the importance of Pythagorean theorem. Most likely, most students are not going to be using Pythagorean theorem in their real life, but there's a lot of important things as far as this relationship. And in my sense, from a pure mathematics teacher kind of point of view, what I like to do is kind of look at the how that came about and on why it's important, and like that discovery and the interest of that and the implications and why that was important and helpful. And yeah, it's not going to have any profound implications for majority of people in real life, but I also think it is something that's still important. It's a great relationship for students to understand and for students to be able to understand and, be able to apply for different sectors. It's better to listen to music. I would not recommend listening to music. That was actually one thing which I recommended. I know for majority of you kind of guys grew up. I mean, I did too. I'm old, but I'm not that old. Like I grew up like studying to, studying like with background music. And like when I was in college, I'd always go to the coffee shop because I was like the background. But I think when you're trying to cram for a test, I think the more focused that you can be, the more like in the state of flow you can possibly be, the best. So I would avoid all distractions. I would, the only thing I would have would be a timer. I would get rid of your computer, get rid of, the TV, your music, your phone, anything that's going to distract you, you're going to have to get rid of. Because I think the main thing when you're cramming, again, like everything is important, right? Like, so, everything you're trying to accomplish is very important. The time that you're spending is very important. So if you're going to be wasting time getting distracted, that's a very, very important time that you're losing that you should be studying for. And I don't know if yours helped me over 96 in my final exam. Well, thank you very much, General Shrey. That's awesome. Again, how do you avoid procrastinating before a test? That is $1 million question, right? Man, it's, yeah, you know what? I don't know. The only thing that's really kind of worked for me as far as procrastination, like when I have take a test that I just don't want to take, you got to remember, you're not, procrastination is a active choice. Like you're making the choice not to do something because there's something else that you'd rather be doing than studying for whatever that test, right? So the only thing that usually makes me want to study is the feeling or the perception of the feeling of once I'm done with that class, once I'm done taking that test. So what I prefer to do is just try to think about it that way. And I'm like, all right, if I can just get over with this, then I will never have to think about this ever again. And typically, usually, sometimes, not all the times, but a lot of times that's helped me kind of like, all right, let's just study. Let's just get this over with. And that's why I tell students, a lot of times, like, get this over with. We're almost done, like that senioritis is huge because it's like this overwhelming. It's like for so long, it feels like the whole year's been dragged on. It's like, all right, just finish. You got a week, you got 2 weeks. Like get this over with and then you're done. You don't have to think about it, So it's like that. It's the last couple reps, and get it done. And you're going to feel, you're going to be in a much better position from there. So I think that's the only thing I could say that, in my opinion, makes me get more excited compared to procrastinating. Just be, I'm not going to worry about that. A zombie Africa. Well, thank you very much for joining in. Get with it, Naomi. I like it. 20-minute grace period. Thanks. I got my Cambridge exam tomorrow. Oh, best of luck, underdog. Matthew, currently in grade 12 calculus. YouTube is helping me. Yes. Yes. I wish when I was taking math class, I would have, or when I was in high school, I had some YouTube videos or something else to like verify. I remember staring at my book and trying to, your book that have like those 2 or 3 examples, like that's all I would have. And I just remember staring at them, trying to figure things out. And yeah, it'd be very frustrating. Very, very long night sometimes. What is your favorite math to teach? I like pre-calculus. I like trigonometry. And I like calculus. I'm not teaching calculus currently at the moment, but I really did enjoy teaching calculus when I had it. And Gilbert joining from Gambia, West African. Awesome. Glad to have you on. User videos in college, you're a legend. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do these cramming ideals apply for actual studying? Yeah, I think so. Like I wrote in my email, I would definitely agree. I think you can be a little bit more lax with your, with some of these when you are, when you're actually doing studying, if you have like 2 weeks before your exams, I would do more practice problems than just reviewing. I would still create a cheat sheet. I would still summarize the content. I would still go through, I would still write down the formulas and like practice problems and all like that. But I would not be, and also I'd keep it shorter time frames. Instead of doing like 45 minutes, I'd maybe, 45 minutes not bad, but maybe just do like 25 minutes. And I'd try to do them a little bit more frequently. I'd maybe just do like 25 minutes a night and then take a break, and just the more consistently, more often you can do something, I think it's going to be a little bit, better. Or maybe do like 30 minutes, every night or every other night, and try to do some more practice problems with that. So, but definitely everything would still work out the same way, but it's just the main thing is the time. When you have more time, when you have less time, you just got to make sure you're taking advantage of all those minutes, so you just have to be very careful with that. Well, you are very welcome, Keelan. Who punched? Hello, Master. You help me out with serious look. You're very welcome. How long is a good study time? It depends. It depends on when your test is, but I would say if you have a test, like I was telling some students, like if you have a test on, it really all depends on what you can do. But I think I was saying typically if I did 3 45-minute sessions, then that would usually be a good cram. Like I could get through a lot of information for like 3 45-minute sessions. And that's like a really, really detailed attention of studying for a content or a test. Since we're while taking a test. Marshall, that's awesome. Well, you are very welcome on your AP government exam. You got it, the math man. Physics, good for you. Go for it. 2 weeks factoring polynomials. Yeah, I wouldn't spend 2 weeks. 2 weeks on factoring polynomials, but maybe, I don't know. I've examined 2 weeks and I forgot so many concepts. Yeah, I mean, thankfully you have 2 weeks, so that's a good thing. Like 2 weeks, you have plenty of time. What I would do is try to do one topic a day, right? Spend 30 minutes a day. That's the nice thing about having time. That's what I would recommend for all people. When you have time, take advantage of it. Do 30 minutes every single day. That's what when we start like the fourth quarter after spring break, like right in March, I tell students like time is now. If you want to do well in this exam, you start studying now, and at that point, I was telling my students like, just do 4 math problems. So we have like this spiral review packet. And I was like, just do 4 math problems a day. If you can do 4 math problems a day of like random spiral review problems, that's going to help prepare you for the end of the year. Now, those 4 math problems, you might remember how to do them and it might take you 5 minutes. Those 4 math problems you might have completely forgotten and it might take you 20 minutes, but you're going to start remembering this stuff. And then the more and more you come around this, everything's going to be much easier. By the time you get to the test, you are just going to be doing a quick little review and it's going to be very easy for you to like recall a lot of the information. Because can you imagine trying to, you can't do, let's say those 4 problems for like 30 days, that'd be 120 problems. Like you can't do 120 problems. Like you can, but like, what are you going to retain the night before a test, right? That's not going to benefit you. So that's why the cramming for a test is a little bit different than I would say than generally preparing for a test. And it's not ideal, but it is something that's reality and something that I still think you can, get some benefit out of rather than just, giving up. I'm going to A in factoring polynomials. Awesome. I do math at the University of Minnesota, Taylor use math problem. We do AP stats and winter assignments. Cool. Do you do a review for Algebra 2? I wish I was. I am teaching. I will then I don't even know what I was saying. Oh yeah, I should have done a review on Algebra 2, but I just ran out of time. Once I had my kid, I just don't have any time at the moment. So I'm just completely busy. So that's why I'm just sticking with my pre-calculus. But that is Algebra 2 is something that I'm looking for adding as well as geometry, as well as calculus. So that's definitely something I'm looking into adding for you guys. So I apologize. Something hopefully we'll be able to start doing that for next year. Yes, I do have a TikTok and I do have a couple videos on there. Just search up Brian McLogan for me if you are interested. I got a same kind of thing. That was something I was looking into doing more, and then I just got too busy taking away. So I do populate some videos up on there, but and have a little fun, but it's not something I'm being able to put too much of my attention on. All right. And what maybe we start making videos just to have students, have something that students could go back and review. I originally made my videos for my own students so they could go back and watch, right? Like as I teach something, they could go back and watch the lesson. Struggling with calculus. Yeah, you just got to go back and keep practicing. I mean, calculus is one of those skills that I think the more you practice with it, the better you're going to start picking up on things. So, keep going at it. I have a 5-week Calc 2 course this summer. What do you recommend? Ooh, that is, and the only reason I say ooh, because it's just any calc like over the summer, it's just very high intensity. I would recommend going through as much. So actually 2 things, Michael, and I answered this question last week, if I remember correctly too. What I would do is 1, go back through as much Calc 1 as you possibly can, just to kind of refresh yourself. And then 2, I don't have any Calc 2 content on my YouTube channel, but I would recommend trying to learn as much Calc 2 on your own at the moment, because the thing is, once you start those sessions, if you start getting behind, I mean, it's just gonna feel like you're like trying to hold on like a fire hose, right? Trying to drink from a fire hose. I mean, it's just gonna be so much content moving so fast. So I would recommend trying to get at least as much of that information as you can on your own, or at least get exposed to it. And even if you don't really fully understand it from somebody teaching it on YouTube, but at least that's something then you kind of know what to look out for and what kind of questions that you can ask where you kind of got confused. But yeah, I mean, if you're a very strong math student, then, maybe you don't really need to do all that. But I would recommend going back, reviewing Calc 1, and then also trying to do some Calc 2 before you get started with that course, because, depending on your professor, depending on how the course is structured, it could become overwhelming in the summer session. So that's something I would expect for you guys. All right. Ooh, guys, a lot of questions for me. Oh, I'm good too. Problems still is faithful. Yes, that is great advice. If you're my students, somebody was saying like how to factor polynomials. I mean, I give my pre-calculus students, I think, 140 factoring problems. I mean, it's like, it's not fun. It's horrible. But it's like, there's only one way you're going to learn how to do something like that. It's like practice, right? There's no other way to get around it. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. And the students that do it, they don't have to ask me questions about factoring later in the year. Like, they can figure it out. All right. Well, hello, Michaela. Any tips for calculus figs over summer? Nope. I don't, just not anything based for there. I did not like calc-based physics, when I was taking it. So the whole applications of math, that's when I kind of realized that I'm like, I don't really like applied mathematics. I'm much more like the pure mathematics. And that was kind of my distinction, was once I took that calc-based physics, I was like, I don't really like applying everything that I'm learning, which is weird because everybody's like, oh, you got no real life. And I'm like, or the real life stuff. I'm like, that just never interested me or motivated me from that. Do you have any worksheets on factoring polynomials? I have a ton, Alex, a ton. If you look at my, you know what, let me see if there's a video on my channel. If you search like I factored 100 polynomials or something like that, you'll see the video. And there's a video where I literally went through like 140 of those examples. So I would definitely go and check that out. I do have worksheets. I don't have any worksheets, I believe, inside of this. They were all inside of my courses. So, or at least I don't think I have anything available from that. But I do have a video of the practice examples that you can probably like look over there and try to do them on your own before you watch my video. That'd be very helpful. All right. So guys, I gotta get started here because I got school tomorrow. So I gotta go and get in with the math before it gets too late. So I do apologize. I know many of you got to questions that I did not answer. I am sorry, guys. I do got to get to get you some of these math problems here. But I will also be live next week. So if you have more questions and you still have an exam coming up, then feel free to join me for my next live stream next Sunday night. And then also, guys, you can go ahead and post your questions here in the link above, as well as you can also go to my Discord server where you guys can post questions all year long, as well as get help from people, other tutors around that are willing to help you guys out with your math. All right. Oh, come on. Okay, so we covered the cram for a test. There's a lot of things for a cram for a test on there. So now let's go ahead and get into logarithmic equations. So the student, I really don't like answering some of these questions, but I'm just going to kind of go through some tips for solving logarithmic equations. And I think one of the, guys, no, okay. All right, so one of the things I think that when you're trying to solve logarithmic equations, I think there's some important things that I want, you to look for, okay? So here's some tips for solving logarithmic equations. Is the one thing is like when you have the log, let's just say on the same side, right? The main idea is what we call using the one-to-one property. So a lot of times we have to use the properties of log to like manipulate them, to combine logs, to condense them. But mainly if we want to get the log to be log equals log, okay? Now, again, this doesn't work if you have another number, but once you have log equal logs, you can use the one-to-one property to go ahead and solve your equation. So you can have x equals, 5 in this case. You can drop the logs and just have the argument equal to the other argument of the logarithm. So that is one thing to look for, and when you're solving your logarithmic equations. Another thing to look for is using the properties of log or converting them to exponential form. So if I had like log, let's say 2 to the x equals 5. So basically to isolate the logarithm and have it equal to a value. Once you can do that, now you can go ahead and use the properties of logarithms to say x equals 2 to the 5th, okay? Or you could just convert this to exponential form, right, from on there, okay? So by using the properties of logs, but basically your main idea here is to isolate the logarithm equal to a number, and then you can either use the properties of log, which is the raising of a power, or convert it to exponential form to go ahead and solve. So there's kind of two tips to look for logarithmic equations. Long division. So the student asked me about long division. I don't know what they're talking about, if they're talking about with numbers or with polynomials. So I'm going to do both. So the first thing I want to do is kind of talk about if I was to add 3 1/4 plus 1/4, like what would that answer be? So to do this, again, this isn't long division. This is adding a mixed number plus a fraction. So to do that, remember that what we're going to want to do is convert our mixed number to an improper fraction. So you do 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 1. So that's 13/4, okay, plus 1/4. And that equals 14/4, right? Now, so 14/4 is you can see that's a fraction, right? Now, but more importantly though, not only is that a fraction, that is also what kind of be, because if you were to like look at this or we were to simplify this, you could say like, what would this look like? So we could use long division, right? So I could say, all right, how many times does 4 go into 14? Well, 4 goes into 14. Let's actually do this over here. Okay, 4 goes into 14 3 times. 3 times 14 is 12. Subtract your rows, and you get 2. 4 is not going to 2, so that's our remainder. So it's going to be 4 plus a 2 as your remainder over your divisor. Now, 3 2/4, right, which is really the same thing as 3 1/2, right? So again, we write that 3 plus 2/4, we write that as a mixed number as 3 1/2. Now look what happens here. If I was going to take this, if I was going to take my whole numbers, you can really just take this as 3 1/4 plus 1/4, right? You add the fractions, which is equal to 3 1/2. Okay, so the point that I want you to kind of get away from this, because I think one thing that students usually, there's a couple things that students have trouble with on the on long division. One is the understanding the remainder, and two is remembering the algorithm, okay? So this really didn't have anything to do with the algorithm. It was really just a way for me to show you, like, division, like we have fractions and mixed numbers. Like, it's the same thing with using long division. Long division is just another way for us to be able to apply this. Now, it's very helpful to understand this with numbers, but now let's go and take a look at why is that important once you use polynomials. So if I were to multiply these, because again, remember division, guys, is just going to be the inverse operation of multiplication. So in this case, I would have x squared plus 6x plus 8. All right. Now, if this times this equals that, that means x plus 4 is going to evenly divide into an x squared plus 6x plus 8. Okay. Now we know the answer is going to be x plus 2, right? We know this divides into that x plus 2 times. But let's go through the algorithm. So just like I did over here, I took my first term, I divided it into 14, or my first term. You can't divide it into 4, right? So then, or the 1. So therefore, you divide it into the 14. So x divides into x squared. You can say x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Okay, then you go ahead and subtract the rows, and you get a 2x plus 8. X goes into 2x 2 times. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. And then they subtract, and you get 0, which is your remainder. So since we have a remainder of 0, that tells us that my denominator, or my divisor, evenly divides into my I'm losing my train of thought on my live stream. We have my quotient, my dividend. There we go. So evenly divides my dividend. That's why we don't have a remainder. Whereas this case, we know we'd have to have a remainder, right? Because 4 doesn't evenly divide into 14. Yes, Roman, I do believe you can. All right, so then another person asked me to like talk about rationalizing the denominator. I was like, what are all these questions? So rationalizing the denominator is kind of an interesting one because, you know, it's not really like putting things in simplified form. It is very helpful in certain topics and mathematical topics to have a form rationalized. But it's not really necessary in all of math topics. So typically in trigonometry, that's one way where a lot of times we will use a lot of the rationalized form. So I'm just going to kind of go through a quick little review here. So if I had 1 divided by the square root of 2, if I want to rationalize the denominator, all I'm going to do is multiply by the square root of 2 over square root of 2. And what that'll do is it'll give me square root of 2 over the square root of 2 squared. Well, the square root of 2, square root of 2 squared is just 2. You can see here now, I do not have a radical in my denominator. Now, this is very similar to, what if I had the cube root of 2? Well, in this case, I'm going to want to rationalize the denominator, but now I'm going to rationalize it as a 2 cubed. Now, the reason why I'm going to do that now is because, again, if I want to get rid of my radical, I got to have 2 cubed. So 2 times 2 squared is 2 cubed. So what this will give me here is a 2 squared all over a cube root, a cube root of 2 cubed. So 2 squared here is going to be 4, divided by the cube root of 2 cubed, which is 2. So you can see how, depending on what your index is, that's how you can adjust what you're going to rationalize the denominator with. In addition to that, one real quick thing is, what if I had 1 minus the square root of 2? Well, now when you multiply by the square root of 2, you got to apply distributive property, right? So that's not going to work. So what we're going to want to do now is when we have to rationalize the denominator, what we're going to need to do, we're going to want to multiply by the conjugate. So the conjugate is the exact same term, but it's going to be the opposite sign. So in this case, so that'd be square root of 2 over square root of 2 minus 2. So that doesn't really rationalize the denominator. But over here, what this will do is this will give us a 1 plus the square root of 2 all over a 1 minus 2, okay? Because basically that's the difference of 2 squares, okay? So that basically gives us a 1 plus the square root of 2 over negative 1, which you could distribute and go on from there. All right. All right, how can I turn x plus 4y plus 8 into function notation? Now, this is kind of an interesting one because, you know, Gabby, this is an equation equal to 0, right? So typically when we're talking about an equation, we're talking about a function. a f of x, our output is going to be usually going to be related to with y. So if I have, x plus 4y plus 8 equals 0. Okay. Typically what we're going to want to do is now isolate this for y. So we're going to solve for y because our f of x is again going to represent our output. Okay. And then we'll divide by 4. So then I'll have y equals a negative 1/4 x minus 2. Now I can replace y with f of x. And that's usually how they're going to be represented from each other. And that's what I would say would be the best function notation to represent that equation. Question number 5 says the diagram shows the rectangle rust. Let's maybe expand this a little bit. The diagram shows rectangle rust. Show your work and justify answers using the properties of rectangles. So it says uy is 2x minus 1. Okay. So let's write that in there. And our s is 3x plus 1. Okay, so that's 3x plus 1. Find the value of x. Well, since it's a rectangle, our diagonals are going to be equal to each other. So this also, since they also bisect each other. So I can say ut is going to be equal to rs. Okay, so now again, also we could say that that is double the amount. So I could say 2 times 2x minus 1 is equal to a 3x plus 1, right? Because this is bisect. So if this is 2x minus 1, that means that's 2x minus 1. Right? Now you could write 2x minus 1 plus 2x minus 1, or you just do multiply by 2. So let's go and see, it says solve for x, find x. So we get a 4x minus 2 equals a 3x plus 1. Minus a 3x plus 2 plus 2. Looks like we get an x equals 3. X is equal to 3. There you go. All right, so then it says find the length of TU based on your answer. Well, again, what do we say? TU is a what? 2 or 4x minus 2. So it's a 4x minus 2. So then just plug in 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Minus 10 is going to be 10. Sweet. And then it says let SU equal 6 and find ST. Find ST based on your answer in B. Oh, okay. So SU is 6. This is 10. So let's redraw this. So that's 10 and that's 6. We want to find this one. Well, again, we're going to be using, remember, this is a rectangle, right? So we can use Pythagorean theorems. So we can say 6, let's just call this x. So 6 squared plus x squared equals 10 squared. Okay, so 36 plus x squared equals 100. Minus 36, x squared equals 64. X is equal to 8. Or ST, sorry. ST is equal to 8. Right, I just use x is equal to ST for my work. All right. Question number 6. So this student was asking, I think we had to find the angle for on this one. So remember, like whenever you go all the way around, now again, this is a negative direction, right? So you can see like the rotation that we're going is a negative direction. So my answer is going to be negative. Now we got to say, well, how many times are we going around the circle? Now, we know that all the way around the circle is 2 pi, right? But you can see that we're talking about something that's going to be in denominator of 6. So therefore, that's going to be 12 pi over 6. Okay, so let's see. I did one rotation. Okay, so that's going to be a 12 pi over 6. And then let's do another rotation. That's going to be plus a 12 pi over 6. Then you could see another half a rotation would be 6 pi over 6 but we're a little bit short, aren't we? We're pi over 6 short. So that's going to be plus a 5 pi over 6. All right, so let's say it's 24. That's going to be a 29, negative 29 pi over 6. And there you go. Question number 7 says, find the exact value under the conditions. So we have the double angle formula for cotangent. Crap. I didn't look at, crap. I was thinking about this was a different one. Sorry, I'd have to go back and look at this just because I would. The main thing you're going to want to do, I don't have time to go through this. I got to like remember a couple things on this, but the main thing you're going to want to do when you're using your cotangent, and I guess that's what the student, I'd have to go back and check, but the main thing is, let's go and draw your two triangles. Okay. So we have U, and then we have V. Oh, well, thank you for joining in. Oh, it doesn't say. Nancy, well, welcome. Thank you, Nancy. I greatly appreciate that. Joining in as a member. Look forward to adding definitely some more things coming through on the membership that this year just kind of got taken away from this, but definitely looking into some additional points that we're going to be adding into this year. So definitely looking forward to this. So the main thing is when you have cosine, that's going to be, oh, sorry, which quadrant? That's in quadrant 2. So you got to make sure you're drawing your triangles in the correct quadrant. So that's in quadrant 2. And the reason why that's important is because remember the hypotenuse is always positive. So that's going to be negative 5 over 13. And therefore this is going to be a positive 12. The next example, sorry, I forgot. That was in quadrant, oops. That's in quadrant 2. Right? So quadrant 2. The next one's in quadrant, V is in quadrant 2 as well. So the reason why that is important is because, again, knowing your Pythagorean triple here, that's 8, that is 17. This is going to be a negative 15, and that's going to be your angle V. Okay? So now you have the sine and cosine for U as well as for V. And now you can just go and apply it into your sum formula for cotangent, which I didn't look at this problem fully when I was looking at there. So I'd have to go back and review doing those formulas, which I do not remember off the top of my head. So I do apologize for that. So I'm just going to have to at least get you set up on the problem. All right. Well, hello, Ethan. Good to have you on. Logan, Brian. No, sorry, you... I didn't realize what a teacher said. It was a hard time. I was a student sitting in the last dull, frustrated classroom. I had time learning math, but after graduate, I learned a lot from the fact. Cool. Well, awesome. Well, yes, MHS for life. Awesome. All right. Question number 8. So it looks like this is quadrilaterals. So this one says use the figure below to answer the questions on the right. So we have QAD. So Q to A to D is 48. Again, let's move this. Let's make this up. It's kind of hard to see. All right, so we have QAD is 48. Looks like students like online work or something. Not sure if I should be doing this, but that's I guess we'll only do one of them. They submitted like 3 of them or 4 of them, so I think doing one is okay. So, no, not that one. All right, QAD is 48 degrees. All right, so we have 48 degrees. And then it says QSD, so Q to S to D is 86. And then DQS, D to Q to S, is going to be 54 degrees. Okay, so find the measure for UDQ. Do not include any other symbol. So now we got to find U to D to Q. Okay, so we can definitely do that. We can look at that, guys. If you notice, these are all the angles in a triangle, right? I mean, look at. So all we got to do is do 180 minus 86 minus 54, right? So I forget about that, and my brain already hurts. So 180 minus 86 minus 54. And I get 40. So, no, I got 38 last time. What the heck did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. 54, and that's 86. And then they're asking us for U to D to Q. I think I might have typed it. Did I type there? Oh, I typed in 56. It's 54. Okay, so I just typed it wrong. Yeah, so that's 40 degrees. So this answer is supposed to be 40 degrees. All right, then it says find the measure of AUQ. A to U to Q. So that's going to be the big angle. All right, so now we have to go through some properties here. All right, so let's go through a couple things. The main thing that we're going to want to talk about is our alternate interior angles. So when you have parallel lines and we have a transversal, then alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. So, well, thank you, Robert Marshall, 3.14. I love it. Starting college at 50, your video is helpful. That is very awesome to hear. And I'm so happy to be able to help you out. And congratulations on going back to school. I wish you the very much luck. And I'm very happy to hear my videos are helping you out. Keep it up. Okay, so we know alternate interior angles are always equal. So if you can see here, if like you were to extend these parallel lines and then extend this transversal here, you would see if that's 48 degrees, then that has to be 48 degrees, right? Because that's exactly the exact same drawing I just drew, right? 48, 48. In addition, furthermore, we could do these two parallel lines. And then this is a transversal. So then we'd have parallel lines and this transversal. And if I said that was 40, then that would have to be 40. So if that's 40, then that's 40. Okay. Then the other thing we need to know is that two lines, if that's 86 degrees, we know that these two angles make up what we call a linear pair, right? They're going to add up to 180. So therefore, this is going to be a 94 degrees. All right. So then all we simply got to do then is find this x, this angle. So again, we could do 180 minus 94 minus 48. All right, so we'll do 180 minus 48 minus 94, and that equals 38 degrees. But again, guys, that's not what the question was asking, was it? The question was asking, what's the measure of AUQ? So that's going to be 38 degrees plus 40 degrees, which equals 78 degrees. And there we go, guys. That is it. So thank you so much, guys, for joining in. If you have an exam coming up this week, I wish you the very best of luck. If you still have some more time, then please do not cram. Please take your time, work through some extra problems, get yourself ready and prepared. If you do need to cram, hopefully go back and you're just joining onto the live stream. Go back and check at the beginning of the live stream where I mentioned a couple tips to help you guys out. I hope those are beneficial for you guys. What app to use to write notes on edit? I use Notability. So that is the app that I am currently working on, is Notability. So either way, guys, wish you guys the best of the luck. And I will be here next week to answer your questions. So I'll see you guys then. Cheers.